You've probably heard a lot about destiny, fate, or divine blessing. Most people think those things are vague, like wishing on a star or winning a lottery. But what if everything you've been told about how life works, especially the idea that you have to hustle endlessly, struggle through hardship, and scrape by on luck, is fundamentally backwards? What if, in reality, the universe or God or whatever ultimate force you believe in is not just watching from afar, but is actively funding your life right now? Not in some metaphorical sense, but literally providing the resources, opportunities, and protection you need if only you knew how to see it. That sounds almost too good to be true. In fact, it sounds suspiciously like a scam or a comforting story someone made up to make people feel better. But let's hold that skepticism for a moment, because what I'm about to tell you will challenge everything you thought you knew about struggle, success, and divine favor. And this isn't some fluffy self-help nonsense either. This is about understanding reality itself, how the universe works beneath the surface of everyday life, beyond what school books teach you. You might wonder, if God or the universe is funding your life, then why aren't more people aware of it? Why does it seem like so many are trapped in hardship, and some even suffer without end? This is where things get strange. The part most people never realize is that the funding isn't about endless money or instant rewards. It's about alignment. It's about being chosen in a way that's invisible at first, but becomes unmistakable once you grasp the deeper workings of reality. And here's the catch. Traditional education and society almost never teach this. They focus on hard work, competition, and outcomes measurable in grades or dollars, not on subtle signals or spiritual flow. Think of life like a vast garden. Some plants get plenty of sunlight and water. Others struggle in shade and drought. Most people see the garden and think that those lucky plants grew because they somehow worked harder or had better seeds. But what if the gardener, the one who controls the sunlight and the water, is selectively nurturing certain plants, not because they're better, but because they are chosen for a purpose? You might be one of those plants, even if you can't see it yet. Now, the natural question is, how do you know if you're one of those chosen? Is it some magical feeling? A secret handshake? Not quite. It's more subtle, like feeling an unusual calm during chaos, or opportunities appearing that don't make sense by ordinary logic. We'll come back to this, but first, let me ask you, have you ever noticed how sometimes when you need help the most, a solution seems to appear from nowhere? A random call, a chance meeting, or a sudden inspiration that feels like it was whispered to you by the universe itself. That's not coincidence or luck. That's the funding in action. You might still think, okay, but isn't that just wishful thinking? People have illusions of grandeur all the time. True, the mind is prone to tricks, but here's where physics and philosophy intersect in a fascinating way. Most people believe time is a line, flowing strictly from the past to the future, where your actions cause effects in a neat, predictable order. But what if that model is incomplete? What if the universe is more like a conversation between past, present, and future, where what you intend or feel right now can influence the unfolding of events? This is where it gets strange. I'm not talking about some new age mumbo-jumbo, but an idea that even some of the best minds in science struggle with. Quantum mechanics hints at this when particles seem to know what we're going to measure before we measure it. It's as if reality is not fixed until observed, and our consciousness plays a role in shaping outcomes. So if your mind and your intentions are part of the system, could it be that your life is being funded not just externally, but through your alignment with this deeper reality? The part most people never realize is that funding isn't just money or resources. It's the way the universe arranges circumstances in your favor when you tune in to the right frequency. So what's this frequency? Imagine you have a radio. You can't hear a station unless you're tuned precisely to its frequency. Life's funding works the same way. You might be surrounded by static, noise, distractions, or doubts that block the signal. But when you quiet the noise, through faith, clarity, or intention, the station becomes clear. That clarity unlocks the flow of support and resources, not by magic, but by a natural law that's been misunderstood or ignored. Pause for a moment and consider this. Most schools teach you facts and skills, but rarely teach you how to navigate this invisible current. They don't teach you how to receive divine funding. Instead, they encourage competition, comparison, and self-doubt. This is the hard part, the conditioning that blinds people to their chosen status. It's why many who are actually destined for greatness never realize it, because they've been taught to doubt themselves and believe life is a struggle for survival rather than a journey of alignment. But here's a curious question. If you're chosen and the universe is funding you, then why does it sometimes feel like nothing is happening? Why do challenges persist? The answer is layered. Funding often comes disguised as trial, as preparation, or as a test. The gardener doesn't just water the plant. Sometimes the plant must grow through rocky soil or wind to strengthen its roots. This is the part where many give up, but those who understand see the struggle itself as a signal that they're on the right path. We'll circle back to this, but imagine you're in a dark room trying to find the light switch. Every stumble or shadow you encounter isn't a failure, but a clue, a feedback mechanism that helps you locate the source of illumination. This is the nature of divine funding. It's interactive, responsive, and requires your active participation. It's not a passive lottery ticket. It's a dance between your choices, intentions, and the unseen forces at work. Now let's flip the perspective a bit. Most people think of God or divine forces as distant, mysterious, and uninterested in daily details. But what if that's exactly what's wrong with the traditional view? What if God is deeply involved, funding your life with precise care, but doing so quietly, so that you develop faith and self-awareness rather than entitlement? This subtlety is why the funding can feel invisible or unreliable. It's a test of alignment and trust. At this point, you might ask, is this just a comforting story, or is there any evidence? Here's where your personal experience becomes the key. When you start paying attention to patterns, moments of grace, sudden ideas, unexpected help, you begin to notice the funding. And over time, the pattern becomes undeniable. This isn't about blind faith, but about opening your eyes to the reality that's been right in front of you, camouflaged by conventional thinking. Before we move on, consider one last paradox. Sometimes, the more you chase the funding, the more elusive it becomes. The part most people never realize is that surrender, letting go of desperate control, is what unlocks the flow. This sounds wrong at first. Shouldn't effort bring rewards? Yes, but not frantic, fear-driven effort. Instead, focused intention combined with openness and trust activates the system. This is where it gets strange again. Your alignment with the divine funding depends more on your inner state than on external actions alone. We're going to explore what that means in detail in the next part, but before we move to that, consider this final thought. The reality you're beginning to glimpse is unsettling in the best way. The universe is far more mysterious and generous than you have ever imagined, and you, yes, you, have already passed the test you didn't even know you were taking. From this moment on, the universe is not just watching, it's funding your life, quietly, steadily, perfectly.
This is why your faith and trust are crucial. Not blind faith, but a grounded trust built on experience, observation, and honest questioning. When you trust the flow, even when you don't see the entire path, you open yourself to a deeper funding that sustains you through challenges and guides you toward growth. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't see the roots growing underground, but you water and tend the plant with faith that it will sprout. Divine funding works similarly. You may not see all the effects immediately, but your alignment nourishes growth in unseen ways. So, as you move forward, remember, your life is a dynamic interplay of past, present, and future. You are not merely reacting to your circumstances, you are actively participating in shaping them through your awareness, your intentions, and your readiness. The universe has chosen you and is funding your life in ways that go beyond ordinary understanding. This funding is a quiet current beneath the noise of struggle, a dialogue that transcends time, and a dance that calls you to awaken your fullest potential. And so, the test you passed was not just about surviving, but about awakening to this profound truth. Your journey is ongoing, a continuous unfolding into greater alignment and flow. As you begin to see your life not as a random sequence of events, but as a tapestry woven with divine intention, it's natural to ask, how do I stay connected to this funding? How do I keep the flow steady when life pulls me in every direction? This is where many stumble, not because the funding stops, but because the noise of daily life drowns out the subtle currents beneath. Think of yourself as a radio receiver surrounded by static. The universe's funding signal is always there, but distractions, worries, and fears act like interference, making it hard to hear. The first step is to develop a practice of listening, not just hearing, but truly listening with presence and openness. This listening can take many forms: meditation, quiet reflection, journaling, or simply pausing to notice the small miracles in your day. The part most people never realize is that these moments of stillness aren't escapes from reality, but gateways to deeper connection. When you learn to pause and listen, you begin to perceive the patterns and nudges guiding your path. Now, here's a paradox worth exploring. Staying connected doesn't mean becoming passive or detached. Divine funding requires engaged surrender, a willingness to act with intention, but without desperate control. Imagine surfing. You can't force the wave to come to you, but when it does, you paddle with all your skill and trust that the wave will carry you. The wave is the funding. Your skill and intention are your part in the dance. You might ask, what if I make mistakes or lose the flow? That's inevitable. The part most people never realize is that falling out of alignment isn't failure, it's feedback. Like a sailor who drifts off course, recognizing the drift is the first step to correction. Divine funding includes the grace to recover, adjust, and keep moving forward. Let me share something counterintuitive. Sometimes the best way to reconnect with your funding is to embrace the struggle, not fight it. When you resist difficulties, you create tension that blocks flow. But when you accept the challenge with curiosity and openness, you allow the currents to shift and carry you forward. This is where faith becomes practical. Faith isn't about ignoring reality, but about trusting the process, even when outcomes are uncertain. It's the steady hand on the tiller during the storm, the quiet belief that beneath the chaos, the river still flows. Now, think about the relationships in your life. Divine funding often arrives through people, through kindness, support, unexpected help. The universe doesn't work in isolation, it's a web of connections. When you align yourself with the flow, you also become a node of support for others. Your openness invites mutual funding. Here's a thought. What if part of your divine funding is your ability to receive and give? The part most people never realize is that generosity, whether of time, attention, or kindness, is a powerful signal that opens the channels wider. It's not just about taking, it's about the flow of giving and receiving that sustains the system. Now, let's consider the role of doubt. Doubt can feel like a blockade, but it's actually a doorway. Questioning your beliefs, your readiness, or even the idea of divine funding itself is part of the process. The universe doesn't expect you to accept everything blindly. Instead, it invites honest inquiry, which sharpens your awareness and strengthens your connection. Think of doubt as the fire that refines gold. Too much doubt can consume you, but the right amount purifies your understanding. When you approach doubt with curiosity rather than fear, it becomes a tool for growth, not a source of paralysis. And here's another paradox. The more you accept uncertainty and doubt, the more your faith deepens. The part most people never realize is that faith and doubt aren't opposites, but dance partners. Together, they keep your awareness alive and your connection vibrant. Before we wrap up this part, let's revisit the idea of surrender. Surrender isn't giving up or resignation, it's trusting that the universe is funding you in ways you can't always see. It's the calm acceptance that your path will unfold in its own time, guided by intelligence greater than your fears. So, as you move forward, cultivate listening, practice engaged surrender, embrace doubt as a doorway, and remember that divine funding flows through connection and generosity. Your journey is not just about receiving, but about becoming a channel for this mysterious, abundant flow. Because the truth you're awakening to is subtle but powerful. The universe is funding your life continuously, patiently, and perfectly. Your role is to tune in, trust, and participate in this extraordinary dance. As you grow in awareness of divine funding, a remarkable shift happens in how you experience reality itself. The boundaries you once saw between yourself and the world begin to blur. You realize that the universe isn't some distant machine, but a living, responsive intelligence, and you are a vital part of it. This is where many people feel a mix of awe and discomfort. It's unsettling to realize you're not just a passive passenger, but active participant in shaping existence. Divine funding is the palette, the colors, and the texture that support your creation. You might ask, if I am part of this co-creation, how do I avoid becoming overwhelmed or lost in uncertainty? The answer lies in grounding yourself in presence, anchoring your awareness in the here and now, while remaining open to the unfolding mystery. Presence is not about control, but about connection. When you are fully present, you sense the subtle currents of divine funding more clearly. You notice the flow in relationships, opportunities, and even your own thoughts and feelings. This presence becomes your compass in the vastness of existence. Now, consider how your thoughts shape your experience. The universe responds to energy, and your mental and emotional states emit frequencies that influence what comes your way. This isn't mystical mumbo-jumbo, it's supported by psychology and emerging science. The part most people never realize is that negative thought patterns don't just affect your mood, they distort your connection to divine funding. Fear, doubt, resentment, and anger create interference, like static on a radio, making it hard to hear. The first step is to develop a practice of listening, not just hearing, but truly listening with presence and openness. This listening can take many forms: meditation, quiet reflection, journaling, or simply pausing to notice the small miracles in your day. The part most people never realize is that these moments of stillness aren't escapes from reality, but gateways to deeper connection. When you learn to pause and listen, you begin to perceive the patterns and nudges guiding your path. Now, here's a paradox worth exploring. Staying connected doesn't mean becoming passive or detached. Divine funding requires engaged surrender, a willingness to act with intention but without desperate control. Imagine surfing. You can't force the wave to come to you, but when it does, you paddle with all your skill and trust that the wave will carry you. The wave is the funding. Your skill and intention are your part in the dance. You might ask, what if I make mistakes or lose the flow? That's inevitable. The part most people never realize is that falling out of alignment isn't failure, it's feedback. Like a sailor who drifts off course, recognizing the drift is the first step to correction. Divine funding includes the grace to recover, adjust, and keep moving forward. Let me share something counterintuitive. Sometimes the best way to reconnect with your funding is to embrace the struggle, not fight it. When you resist difficulties, you create tension that blocks flow. But when you accept the challenge with curiosity and openness, you allow the currents to shift and carry you forward. This is where faith becomes practical. Faith isn't about ignoring reality, but about trusting the process even when outcomes are uncertain. It's the steady hand on the tiller during the storm, the quiet belief that beneath the chaos, the river still flows. Now, think about the relationships in your life. Divine funding often arrives through people, through kindness, support, unexpected help. The universe doesn't work in isolation, it's a web of connections. When you align yourself with the flow, you also become a node of support for others. Your openness invites mutual funding. Here's a thought. What if part of your divine funding is your ability to receive and give? The part most people never realize is that generosity, whether of time, attention, or kindness,